And welcome back to the Book and Life podcast. Today we're going to have a brand new book guest on. Whether they're an author, an editor, a producer, you'll never quite know, so you're in for one hell of a ride. But today I just have to do the adverts and then I'll get us straight into that most important conversation. And as we do every week, I'm going to read The Shadow, which is part of the Time Guardian series, and this is book 4 from Marianne Curley. The battle is over, the war is won. The prophecy complete, but life can't just pick up where it left off for Ethan, struggling to cope with tragic loss. At odds with friends in the guard, he finds himself adrift, jumping in shadows and sensing someone who can't possibly be there. Blaming herself for the goddess Athena's death, Giselle swears revenge, to vilify the Immortals' plan for world domination. But Giselle hadn't planned on love, and that leaves her with an unbearable choice. Should she follow her heart, or the strings of a goddess short on praise but high on expectation, who continues to pull her from the grave? As the Guard and the Order battles through the past and into an impossible future, darkness lurks round every corner. The fight for the world's survival rests with just one. Is it friend or foe who stands in the shadow? And just a reminder that The Price of Freedom by Rosemary Rowan, is being donated to the Ukraine refugee crisis. And here's the blurb for her book. It's one of her Roman British crime series, which was written under her maiden name. All editions can be found online where all books are sold, even her agents donating her commission. Sorry, I don't have the blurb for that, but that's what she's doing. And now, without further ado, let's get you to the guests. So I promised you one of the best in Britain, and today I am bringing you her because I've been excited. I've been looking forward to this. I probably hounded her a little bit to get her on. So without further ado, let's bring in Alexandra Benedict. Did I get that right?
It's Alexandra, but Alexandria is also fine. I really don't mind.
I was trying to make it posher. That posh kind of intro that everybody loves. That's me. I totally try to.
Brilliant.
Because my name never ever gets said right when I go on American shows.
Okay.
I get Christella,
Oh.
Christelle, or I get Cry.
Cry?
Because they shorten it.
Oh, they shorten it. I see.
And I'm like, and when I had McCarrington at the end, yeah, that just never came out right. And I would practice with them before we would go on. Yeah, no. I did TMZ, and I honestly, I was a commentator for TMZ. Every time they had me on, they screwed it up.
That's impressive in a way.
Yeah.
As well as not great, but it is impressive.
And the funny thing was, they had me on commenting for, Sylvia Day's films.
Yeah,
because I was an erotic author, and they didn't know any other erotica authors, so they just, hit me up.
Why not?
And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then I was like, wait, hold on a second. Did they, just pick my name out of, the romance, group or something, Or am I, the only one that's done something that they've noticed?
Or maybe they just love you, even if they can't get your name right.
I stopped commentating with them after a while, because I'm like, you guys can't get my name right. What's the hell am I doing here? But I also think it's because I've got, Joey Legend as my author friend, and I know quite a few wrestlers, and I think some of them must have, been putting them up to getting me on.
Well, that's very handy wrestlers to know, then. Everyone should know wrestlers.
Yeah.
I don't know
if you want somebody to, sell your stuff, sell you as a person,
get some
want a wrestler. Yeah, 100%.
Well, I'm going to take that as good life advice.
Yeah. And you can also get them to do modeling for your covers.
Wow. This is a whole new
see if you
world.
like email them and say, "Hey, I really like your look. Would you model for my book?" Most of them will say, "Yeah." Like, "Yeah, sure." Because to them it's like they're getting free publicity
Sure.
and then you're getting free publicity because they're already on your stuff. It's a win-win because I had Rhino on my book covers,
Oh,
and he's such a teddy bear. I love him to bits, and he'll totally kill me for saying that because his character's supposed to be this
sure.
hard guy,
Yeah, yeah.
But he's such a teddy bear to me. I love him to bits, honest to God. And so yeah, he actually agreed to do all my book covers, and he's never charged me for it, and he's just so tickled that he's on a romance book. Like, because he doesn't look like your typical romance character.
No, that's what's good.
He's like all muscle
Yeah.
and like the amount of people that would stop me and go, "That guy's really cute." Like,
Oh.
just they would pick up the book cover, like, "He's really cute," and I'd be like, "Yeah, he is, isn't he?" So yeah, but I do get a hard time with some wrestlers because they don't like being seen as sex objects.
Well, no, fair enough. Fair
But
enough.
if you think about it, they wrestle in their underwear, right? They cover themselves
Sure.
in baby oil,
Very slippery.
which is very slippery. But
Very,
again, like,
very shiny.
if you're standing in a ring in front of 15,000 people in your underwear, what makes you think women aren't thinking, "Ooh, I wonder what he's like in the sack"? Like, there's no woman that isn't staring at you thinking, like, that kind of stuff. Like, unless they're gay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they might be looking at somebody else and thinking that.
Oh, I know, yeah, like, I mean, the girls are the same,
Yeah.
so to me, it's like, you can't complain about being a sex object if you're, like, going out in your underwear.
Well, I don't know. I think we're all allowed to wear what we want without being a sex object. But I understand the nuances, right, when it comes to that kind of performance.
Yeah. I have also been the girl that gets called by a wrestler to come and pretend to be the ex-girlfriend because his one-night stand won't leave the bedroom.
Uh, that's the thing?
Yep, that's the thing. I was down there looking for a job as a writer, a wrestling writer, because
Yeah,
wrestling we write stuff,
of course.
and I get this call. I knew he pulled the night before, but I didn't make a big deal about it because I was like, okay, he's my friend. I'm like, okay, and I get this call to the room, and he's like, "Crystal, could you nip up and like do your ex-girlfriend routine for me?"
You've got a routine.
Yeah, because I've done this before, right? Like
Of course.
my ex
Why
dance
would you not?
partner slept with so many girls. It was ridiculous. I've seen him more naked than I've seen, that I should have seen,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
So so they knew this story, and he phones me, and he's like, "She won't leave." So I go up to his room and I knock on the door, and then I open the door. And I walk in and I'm like, "What the fuck are you doing? We need to go. We've got shit to do." Like, I'm totally doing the routine. And of course he kills it because he walks right into my arms and hugs me. And I'm like, shit. And the girl, she gets the hint when he walks in and hugs me. Then she takes the hint, she gets dressed, she leaves.
Good.
And then he's like, "Can I just take you back to the States permanently?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Yeah, I'll marry you and chain you to the kitchen sink. It'll be fine."
Yeah, that's not fine.
No. I was
No.
like, I bolted. That's the part. I don't run
Yeah.
anywhere. I'm lazy, right? I ran that day.
Wow.
I ran, and it was like the same weekend. I had a romance fan break into my hotel room.
Ah, I didn't know there was so much drama involved
Oh, yeah.
in being an erotic sports writer or any other kind of writer, to be honest. I've never heard of writers having such drama.
I've never gone and done a convention when something has not happened to me.
Well, I'm going to the wrong conventions, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah, I
Okay.
I have had I got that same weekend. I had a fan come up to me. She had a dildo, right? One of these
Okay.
vibrator things in a big box, this bright pink box,
Okay.
and she asked me to sign it in the pub, and I'm surrounded by wrestlers, like these people that I'm becoming friends with. So
Did you?
I did, yeah.
Did you
I
take
totally like.
it
I
off?
had that nervous, that nervous kind of signage where you're like, okay, it's a fan, so you got to do it. So
Yeah.
I signed it, and then I threw it to my friend across the table because he was sniggering at me, and I'm like, "You sign it." And so he did the awkward kind of signature, and then he threw it to my other friend, and this kind of went on like it was like parcel to parcel,
Ask the
but with a
dildo.
dildo.
Did you take it out of the box to sign it, or were you signing the box?
I just didn't cite the box. I was
Okay.
like,
All
because
right.
the
All right.
picture on the box was this big black, you couldn't
Wow.
mistake it for anything else.
No.
And I
Okay.
thought, oh my gosh, that's gonna be a good story one day.
And
Like,
it is.
yeah, it broke the ice with all of us.
It would break something else as well.
Yeah, and it was funny because like she had broken my room 2 days before. Turned out she worked at the hotel, and I didn't know. And I
That's
opened my
actually turning into a stalking situation,
yeah, it
not
was
something.
like 2 days, and I was like, I went into my room, and I remember going downstairs and telling the boys this, and they like completely like surrounded me after that. So like I never ate alone. I never went to any of the shows alone because they were like, well, But that's what I love about the wrestlers is like if one of you is getting that kind of harassment,
Yeah.
they kind of just like you get sucked in. It's like a fraternity. Um,
Wow.
But they had a hard time like looking at me as a writer because I'm a woman, and
No.
it's weird to them because usually backstage it's just like guys who are book the matches and guys who write, and the girls are really just there to perform. Like they're wrestlers themselves or they're coaches.
Mm.
They're not used to women being like in the writing side of things because that's like like that's in the inner circle of how the companies work. And they just kept giving me funny looks the entire weekend. Like, there's no way she's a writer.
Well, I'm very glad that you are entering that elite and
Yeah.
changing the way things are done.
Well, I mean, if you look at WWE, the only writer that was female that ever worked there was the daughter of the boss.
Oh, right, okay.
Right. There is one female writer, but she's an ex wrestler, and she works at TNA.
Right.
But I've been told by every company, we can't hire you because you're a woman.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I use like the podcast and the books is a great platform for me to say, well, why can't a woman write wrestling? I don't need to have stepped in the ring to have studied it to understand it,
No,
you
no.
know. And I've actually had wrestlers who've been around for 40, 50 years turn to me and say, you've got a hell of a mind for characters and a hell of a mind for the business. And to me, that means more than any job that they could give me.
Mm.
Because at the end of the day, the old timers are the ones that have the respect because they've done it for the longest time.
Yeah.
Like Gerald Briscoe, I mean, he said to me, I would hire you at WWE tomorrow if it was my decision. And just him saying that to me was like, it was like the only proof I needed that
Yeah.
I knew what I was doing. So I stuck with writing instead. I stuck with the books. The books are
Good.
less stressful. I don't have to. I miss being on the road though. I must admit, the pandemic kind of. I don't know if you found it, but not having the interaction with the readers as much was hard going for me. Was it the same for you?
I think because I don't actually go out on tour very much, I don't
Oh,
get
okay.
much interaction with readers other than online. So it didn't change very much. Um, in the crime fiction world, very few authors go on tour. A few do, the sort of mega hitters do.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's all either blog tours or just doing interviews. So there's not enough meeting readers. The people who actually
Read your
read your
stuff.
books,
Yeah.
yeah, who enjoy it. I did go to some Waterstones events and meet some, and those were lovely to
Those
actually
are the
meet real
best.
people. Yeah,
Yeah. To me, like that, when I say going on the road, that's what I mean, like going to the
yeah,
Waterstones events. I've done like wrestling shows, backstage and stuff like that, which really was my training to be the writer that I am.
yeah,
Because like I thought when I saw your name, I was like, oh, she'll be at Shetland Noir, like because Shetland Noir is like this big
yeah.
writing
Oh yeah,
thing
yeah,
that's going on,
yeah.
and Bloody Scotland takes place just up the road from me
I
in
love
Stirling.
Bloody Scotland. I've been many times.
And I love it. Like,
Yeah,
and we've had quite a few crime writers on as well, and I keep getting
yeah,
invited to these crime
yeah, yeah. Of course.
conferences,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I'll probably go, and then there'll be like all this drama that they don't normally get because there'll be wrestling fans that'll come in and they don't know how to act as readers, and it just gets really weird.
Well,
But
I
it
think
might be
I
fun.
think that'd be really funny, particularly at Shetland Noir because it's so small.
Yeah,
That would cause quite the
stir.
furore.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm actually from Shetland, so
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
and it's crazy because I didn't know about Shetland Noir. I just had Marzi Taylor on promoting it.
mm,
And Marzi Taylor actually helped me become the writer I am because when I first started, I had nobody, and then Marzi was like, "No, you're really good. You just need a good editor." Um, so yeah, I did that, and then I've just started. I kind of went into wrestling because it was what I knew best, but I never stopped writing other genres. And this year is going to be the debut of my first ever crime novel.
oh, congratulations.
So I'm dipping my toe in.
Yeah.
I'm terrified because I've had like M.W. Craven on the show. We've had Fiona, Cummings on,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
all these,
yeah.
these sort of really big names. And I'm like, my crime isn't cozy. It's not really a thriller. It's that psychological. That's how I write because I don't know how to write characters any other way. So, yeah, I'm super nervous about it.
Well, crime is a very welcoming community and a very big, well, a very big house with many very different rooms and genres inside it. So all are welcome.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping so because what I did was I took an American crime, real crime,
Mm.
as my inspiration, and I planted it in the Shetland Islands.
Mm.
And I'm thinking, like, it's my, and I've worked on it for years, but here was like my sort of coup de grace was I got in touch with the 48 hours, the first 48 hours
Yeah,
detective,
yeah,
and he helped me right with the writing of it. Like he encouraged me. He was like, "You can dedicate it to me. That's cool." And it's Ronnie Leatherman actually from I think it's Ohio or Oklahoma. I was never really sure on that one.
yeah.
And yeah, I'm just totally excited about doing it. And I keep saying to everyone, I'm like, if you want to read the first crime when I do, I'm happy to give you guys it. But yeah, in the back of my head, I'm like terrified because it's like a totally new genre, no new world for me, and I'm going under. I'm borrowing part of my husband's name for the pen name.
What are husbands for apart from to
Yeah, because it's gonna be.
try on the names
It's so cute
occasionally?
though, because it's K for me, and then it's I for him, and then it's Fleming. So it's like
Okay,
we're coming together to do it.
okay. There
Um,
you go.
because his name is Ian Fleming.
No,
Yeah, seriously, spelt the
that's
same
brilliant.
way too.
That's a great marketing tool.
Yeah, and I was like, I literally said to him, I'm like, can I publish my horror book with your name? And he's like, no.
Absolutely.
Just simple, no. But yeah, he's great. He drive. I can't drive at all, so he drives me everywhere. Um, and yeah, like he doesn't go to the wrestling ones with me because he cannot stand wrestling.
Oh,
But he went on my book tour, and bless him, I didn't have security at one of my signings, and this young girl, she got so emotional. She was crushing my ribs in this hug because she just didn't want to let go of me because the book had moved her so much. She got back
wow.
into dance because of this book and everything. And I needed him to literally pull her off me so I could breathe. And
Whoa.
I was so glad he was there because he literally just put his hands under her oxters and lifted her up and moved, and moved her, you know.
Like a
Um,
piece of furniture.
Yeah, but he'll say to he always says to everyone, he's like, I know Crystal's books better than any of her fans do. Because I read, like, because you know how you have to do readings at some of the signings,
Yeah.
and I can't do readings very well because of the dyslexia, so I have to kind of almost memorize it to do it.
Yeah.
So I read it in the car, so he ends up with the whole book being read to him,
Wow.
and he's like so tired of it.
Oh.
He's a very, very good critic. I'll give him that. Like, he
Okay.
will say to me, "Why did you do that? It makes no sense." So yeah, but I think
Harsh,
we
like
all
this
have
me
people like
sometimes.
that we go to for that.
Yeah, you need a trusted reader or two.
Yeah, I mean, my best friend used to be that, but
Mm.
we hardly see each other at the moment. So, but yeah. So tell us about your book, because you've got two amazing novels coming out, and I'm super excited to see these and
Thank
read
you
these
very
and
much.
review these on the show.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Um, uh, I've got the paperback of Murder on the Christmas Express coming out in November, and the hardback came out last November and sold well and was did really well. So I'm excited about the paperback coming out. And my new novel, The Christmas Jigsaw Murders, comes out in October, and that's in hardback from Simon and Schuster. Um, so those are the ones that are going to be appearing hopefully in supermarkets and Waterstones and WH Smiths uh, come autumn. Um, but I'm writing under my other name at the moment, A.K. Benedict, for a high concept thriller
Oh,
called
cool.
Little Red Death, because I have several hats that I write under, like you. Um, and Little Red Death will be out in 2025 and will be a lead book for Simon and Schuster, and very exciting. So I'm spreading between lots of different things at the moment.
See, you're like me. You're very prolific.
Yeah,
You
I'm
know.
always doing something else. It's either a script or a book or a short story, or
Yeah.
I can't stop.
I'm the same. Like, everyone says to me, I've been doing this since 2010, right? So that's like 13 years I've been writing. And they're like, how do you never get bored of it? And I'm like, because there's like a huge universe in my head, and if I don't let it out, I'll literally go insane. And,
That's
like, when I was telling you about my hospital stay, I literally didn't sleep for 3 weeks because they couldn't give me my sleep medication. So I wrote 100,000 words in 3 weeks because I
that's quite
couldn't sleep.
wow. I mean,
And
if you're
they
not
would,
going to sleep, that's a good way to spend your time.
yeah. Well, I mean, like, what else are you gonna do? Like, where, because it wasn't like I could go anywhere. I couldn't talk to anybody.
Most
So
people would have binge watched, but you created. That's amazing.
yeah. So I got, and it's like that's my first YA as well, and I'm like sticking my toe in YA. I've had a lot of YA stories I've wanted to do, but
Mm.
it's like, when you've been in something for so long, that idea of coming out of that genre and going into something else, there's like almost like a fear factor to that.
Of course, yeah,
You know,
yes.
I think it's okay if you're like because like, I think in romance it's great because you have the same as crime. You've got all these different rooms you can go into, but when you step outside of that house, it's almost like you've not got that cover. And fans can, when you're moving into a different genre, they can be
Mm.
brutal.
Yes, they expect the same thing of you sometimes,
Yeah,
and that's difficult. It's a whole new audience. Even though I think there isn't that much difference between lots of genres, I think of it as just moving around the same furniture and
it
putting
is.
on different cushions. It's the structure is still the same of any narrative, but readers like some readers, not all, but they like quite a niche area, and they don't really like it if you move out of it.
Exactly, and I always think it's hilarious because when I took myself into publishing, I thought I don't want to be cookie cutter. I'm not a cookie cutter person. So when I created Marie's World, they stupidly kind of marketed it as romance, but it's not. It's contemporary literature. Blah. contemporary literature. And it's just because it's not just about their romantic lives, it's about this entire world that nobody really gets to see, and they're going into that. So that, I mean, I had to kind of learn how to work within the compounds of romance when I knew my book didn't belong in romance.
Yeah,
and I'm lucky because the publisher I'm with now, they understand that.
Yeah.
But I'm still kind of out there without walls, really, because what I'm doing hasn't been done before.
Yeah.
You know, and there's I always think there's like, if somebody was to take a pot shot at me, I have nowhere to dive. I don't have trees. I don't have
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And wrestling fans are super supportive, but they are also the most brutal audience you will ever have. Because if you screw it up, they'll tell you, you know?
Oh my goodness.
They're great fans, though.
Sure. As long as they don't crack your ribs.
Yeah, I could do with that. I could do with keeping the ribs, you know, nice and safe.
Yeah.
I actually said to Joe, I'm like, next book signing stuff we do, you have to come, because it's not fair on poor Ian to be security all the time. You know? The only problem is if Joe comes with me on tour, Ian still has to drive. So it's like, technically it'll become like a car full of wrestlers and me, and Ian will be driving, just like... Yeah, I could see him losing his will to live on that journey.
Oh, Ian's brilliant. I don't know Ian, but he sounds brilliant.
He's super brilliant. Like, he's this biker. We were total opposites. You know, at the time he met me, I was a dancer. And he drove motorcycles. Like, every weather, every day, he just loved his bike. And he came up to Shetland, and we spent 7 days getting to know each other. Like, we talked online for months, but we dated for 7 days, and I decided to move in with him. So I packed up my stuff, left my parents' house, jumped on the boat, and we've been together now ever since, and that was like 15 years ago.
Aww.
Been married almost 2.
Amazing. I've been married, well, not yet one. I got
nuts,
married
isn't
in
it?
October. That's lovely. Yeah, it's wonderful.
Like, everyone warned me, oh, if you get married, it changes everything. Didn't change a darn thing between us.
Not if you have a great relationship. It really shouldn't. It should enhance and just create even more of stability. But some people, it doesn't go that way. I'm aware of that.
Yeah, and it's like, I think it's weird because me and him, we actually like to be together 24/7. Like, it's weird. We're not actually happy when we're not together.
That's not weird.
And so many people go, oh my god, it's a codependency thing. And I'm like, no, we get each other and it works. It just works, you know?
Yeah.
So,
isn't quite the same thing. If you really, truly become the same being, then that's different. But you two also have different lives and different aspects.
Yeah, definitely, because he still goes out on the bike and does all that kind of stuff. I can't ride the bike since I broke my jaw, but
no.
I do like social media. He hates social media. Bless him. He hates it, but I do it all the time. He's the only guy that I know that will literally let me go shopping. And come with me. Like, come with me shopping. Shoe shopping, of all things. Like, there's not many guys that do that.
My husband guy loves going shopping with me. He would spend longer shopping than I would.
I take him book shopping. That's his that's his most dreaded thing, is going in a store with me, because I could be there 45 minutes to an hour. You know, if it's a small store.
Highly reasonable. I'm lucky in that Guy is also a writer and a voracious reader. So,
that's fantastic.
Well, I live in a house full of books that we both adore, and so we can share our writing with each other as well, as we're both pro writers.
Yeah, that's cool. Do you have the bookshelf problem as like I do, like where you're starting to run out of bookcase shelf space?
I've long run out of bookshelf space, and have an entire storage facility full of our books that can't go in this house because it's too small.
Okay, I'm not that bad yet, but I'm getting there.
Yes.
we have a 2-bedroom flat, and if we could fit a bookcase somewhere, we've pretty much, you know, my put it like this: I don't have storage because my Christmas tree actually lives in my hall, right? So I have to walk by the Christmas tree every day, and people think it's insane. Like, they come in and they're like, "You've got to have more than 500 books in your house." I do. I know I do.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
but I love books, and I think that's a better addiction than smoking or drinking or, you
I'd
know,
say that was a lot better addiction.
yeah. Like,
Yeah.
to me, like, my husband for my 30th bought me the entire Catherine Cookson collection in
Oh,
hardback.
that will take up a lot of room.
Yep.
Yeah,
Like, there's just a whole bookcase dedicated to her.
yeah.
I have not read them all yet because some of them are really big. Like, I didn't actually
They're really
realize she
big.
wrote really big
Proper
ones.
sagas. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I just finished that. Have you tried the Hamilton series that she did?
No, don't think so. I've read a
Honestly,
few.
I
Oh,
had no idea what I was getting into when I read it, but it's like she actually takes on mental health in that
okay.
saga.
Well
And
done.
not just like mental health, she goes into like how people with disabilities get taken advantage of. And it's like
My
this
goodness.
whole story is told from this one girl's perspective, but you can see the manipulation of other people around her. And you
Yeah,
can see like she desperately just wants to be normal and loved.
yeah,
Like, but to me it blew my mind because here she is in what, the early 90s, tackling mental health and, domestic abuse and
yeah. Absolutely.
disability equality and stuff like that. That to me just blows my mind. Like,
Yeah.
she's probably the reason I got into publishing.
Amazing.
I was reading her when I was like 8 or 9,
Yeah.
which
I
might
think I.
actually be why my dyslexia was so bad in those years. Because
Oh
she's not a big fan of grammar either. So
no, it's more heart than
yeah.
pedantry, isn't it? For
Well, I
Catherine.
think it's more she writes how she speaks,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that to me kind of really influenced my work. I now took it in a kind of way with, well, if I was to tell this story, how would I physically tell it,
Yeah,
rather than, you know, because I think with the writers we get given tools and cookie cutters that we're supposed to follow,
mm.
like don't tell, show, but there's like a lot of times where you actually have to tell because you can't show it. It it
There
just
are
won't work.
moments it's just simply easier and better to tell in one line rather
Yeah,
than show. And while I'm a big advocate of showing in lots of different ways, sometimes you can't beat the one-liner.
no, you can't. I get pulled up for this all the time because if you're doing a scene where you've got a dancer and she's not thinking what she's doing, but she's thinking about her past, you can't
Yeah,
show that
yeah,
because otherwise you end up with lots of these kind of asterisk scenes. So for me, sometimes I have to do it in a kind of tell way where, you're in her head and she's telling you what her past was in order to kind of do it. Otherwise, I just end up with lots of flashbacks.
yeah, yeah. It's difficult to negotiate that without sometimes a character speaking to a reader effectively.
Yeah. I figured out a cool way to get around that. I do diary entries.
That will work too. Or
Yeah.
letters,
Like diary entries and texts and,
emails, yeah,
that kind of thing. Like, it's,
newspaper articles.
yeah, like these things are tools that I would never consider putting into my books. But I figured like the diary entries kind of tied in with what she had done,
Mm.
and it allowed the kind of, and that's what a lot of readers said, it was really good to be actually just in Marie's head for a page or a couple pages, and you have that kind of joint experience. So when you do your background of your characters
Yeah.
and you're kind of filling in their history, what's the best tip that you got for new writers out there to show the history, or do you prefer maybe telling the history rather than trying to show it all?
I think drip feeding history
Yeah.
all the way through a book at pertinent moments is the best way to do it for me, anyway. And for the reader to get an impression early on of who that person is and what we should be curious about, at least to find out more about. What's a hook into his or her past, or their past. And I don't ever like a big exposition info dump, because I just lose it. I've got ADHD and autism, and if someone just launches a load of information at me, I will switch off.
Yeah.
So if that just comes through in the way that someone talks about something else, then I'm happy with that. Just consistently, though. Just keep on adding to that pile.
Because I found it when I was doing ours. There's so much background to all the characters that we have in Marie's world, because it's a wrestling world. There's a lot of wrestlers, obviously. So I had to kind of figure out, well, you know, how do you drip in the connections between these people? Because you can't have just two people suddenly hate each other. You've got to actually have a reason for it. And that was one of my biggest challenges when I started out, was to try and figure out how to do that in an effective way. However, I didn't realize how much harder it was going to be when I came to do crime. I had a big awakening. I'm like, oh, I can't just like do a lot of what I did in my wrestling books. I need to figure out smarter ways of doing this. And you know, I lived and learned. I'm still learning. You know,
we're all learning every time, every book, every genre, everything.
I keep saying that to everyone.
You need to know quite a lot of what's going to happen, how it happens, how it all fits together. It can be annoyingly complicated.
Yeah. I sit with a notebook and I plot everything out.
Yeah.
Because it's the only way that I can remember what on earth I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like I was telling you before this started, for instance, my Marie's World series is 32 books long. Because,
that's amazing.
You know, you're going into Marie's, and then you get Layla's, and then you know, all the characters have their own say throughout the series, so that you get the big picture. And we couldn't do the big picture with just one character.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many times I will just panic and have to check my notes. Do you get that kind of moment where you're like, I know where I want the story to go, but is it in the right direction of what I've pre-planned, pre-proposed?
Yeah.
You know, is it going to affect everything else I've just written? Do you get those moments?
Absolutely. And because I like to plan out quite coherently and thoroughly, but then I also like to give my instinct a fair run at it to keep my interest. Sometimes even though I've plotted within an inch, I still go off by a meter. So
I do that too, yeah.
I then have to, in a next draft, either sort that out or go in the direction I've gone by instinct, or somehow shift it back to what it was originally. And both of those things have happened, and both are annoying.
It is annoying. Like people just think we write the first draft and that's it.
I wish.
Really, honest to God, it's not. I mean, I don't know how many times I've rewritten some of my stuff.
Yeah.
Like
I wish it could just come out perfectly, and then we could just move on.
Yeah.
But no.
I was saying this in another show. I was like, I like just writing. I would just be happy to write something, hand it in, done, move on.
Yeah.
But it just there's a craft to it, and there's like a dedication and discipline and stuff that we have.
Yeah.
I would never been like, because I'm a bit like you. I have problems keeping my attention on one thing at a time. So with dancing, it gave me discipline. It made me go, okay, no, this is what we're doing right now. We've got to do it this way and move on. And then when I went into wrestling, of course, that was like a whole other world, because you're not just writing for your slot. You've got to take into account the entire show.
Yeah.
And you're not writing the entire show. You're one writer in a group.
Right.
You know? And luckily, when I went and I learned under Vince Russo, I learned that really quickly. So I would like see the entire picture that he would talk about. And then I would try and put my bricks in to make it work.
Lovely.
But I'll tell you something, there's nothing more intimidating than walking up to somebody that's like 300 pounds and is 6'2", and you know he's gonna argue with you because I'm sorry, I've not met a wrestler who does not argue with you, right?
Oh.
And you've got to convince them to do your story exactly the way it needs to go in order for the show to work. And they
Wow.
always have notes.
Yeah, my editor is not like that.
No. I've not met an editor who scares me to the point where I have to think of myself as 7 foot tall, 600 pounds to do something. You know,
Right. Yeah.
and I am. I'm 5'2", just. I weigh less than 90. So I'm like railroad thin, and there's been times where I've had to make big guys burst into tears because you gotta wear them down to get them to do what you need to do.
Oh my goodness. So actually, they should be scared of you.
Yeah. Oh no, they
You're
are
the
now.
editor.
Yeah, they are now.
Oh, good.
Like I got nicknamed the Spitfire behind my back, and they don't think they didn't have they were not good at covering it up. Put it that way.
Well, that's probably the biggest compliment
Mm-hmm.
from them. Yeah.
Because I learned really early on that if you want somebody to do a promo, you've got to be able to cut a better one than that.
Right.
And as writers, everyone just expects you to be able to produce something on the spot.
Yeah, yeah.
So a lot of the time, if I'm going to go do something, I have maybe like 4 or 5 different things in my head that I can tap into if I need to do it.
Okay, so you've got
Yeah.
things you can substitute and
Yeah, street
draw
dancing and I would say wrestling has trained me well for the publishing industry.
wow.
Because like that's the thing, like that's the other thing I was talking about the other day was people don't realize there's politics in publishing.
There's politics everywhere, but on the surface, publishing is full of just really lovely
Yep,
people
it is.
who seem to be full of enthusiasm and positivity and think everything will go okay.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, it's not realistic, and people don't always tell you the truth.
No.
Just like in politics.
Yeah, like that's what I was saying to, a wrestler the other day. I'm like, you have to politic in publishing because yeah, they're really positive people, but they're not going to tell you your stuff sucks because they're scared at a later date if your career really takes off and they've got to come back to you to pick you up, that you are going to turn around and say, oh well, you said my stuff was crap, so I'm not going to work with you. But at the same time, there's a lot of them that won't take that risk on you if it's something they don't know about. Because
very much.
it is a business. So you have to be able to pitch, you have to be able to politic and prove that you're worth investing in.
Yeah, and it is a business, and whatever, even though it's dealing with art and craft, it is money, and they want to make more than they've spent.
Exactly.
And they have to balance that over however many hundred thousands, however many books that they publish that year.
Yeah.
So some people are going to come off well from that, and some people really not. So yes, it takes kind of knowing the language and how things work. And when people are new to publishing, it's difficult to know what to expect and what good sales are and what bad sales are, and that changes all the time.
Exactly. And I think for me, like, in the world that, like, I'm in when I first started off, wrestling was always seen as a TV thing. It wasn't seen as something that you can sell. Like, you can sell autobiographies, yeah, fair enough. But I'm almost having to prove them wrong in keeping it going and being like, well, you said no to this, but we are still doing it. And now we're on a national level with our books in every store. Would I love to have been picked up by Simon Schuster, Pam Macmillan, or HarperCollins? Yeah, of course I would, because then I wouldn't have the pressure on me, making the calls to the stores, booking book signings, trying to get Joe across for doing heel wrestle shows, and then we have to meet up, Like, there would be some of that pressure taken off my shoulders, and it would allow me to do what I need to do.
Yeah.
But I don't have that, so the indies have taught me how to hustle a little bit. And I think that's really important. Even if you're in that mainstream publishing line, you still need to know how to hustle.
Absolutely. And the indies can respond more quickly to how a market changes, how people receive things, how to sell on new platforms, whereas the older publishers turning that kind of mechanism, these huge institutions to react quickly to social media marketing and the way things sell. Um, Lots of indies have the edge there.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. I mean, I'm very kind of proud of that because I've learned the hustle. I've learned how to do all this in a short space of
Yeah.
time, and to me,
Mm.
that's pretty incredible. But I also understand, like, I'll never drop that. I'm going to keep that
Yeah.
going, and I'm going to keep fighting, and to make sure that
Yeah.
that kind of comes out. So, if in closing, because we're on a bit of a time crunch today, but in closing, what would be your 3 recommendations of books that stuck with you this past year?
um, I'm going to start with it's called Skint Estate,
Okay.
which by Cash Caraway, and it's a memoir of the life of an abused single mum going through going to refuges, being kicked out of housing, being in a gig economy as a stripper and a writer, and going to food banks. And this is in the last 15 years or so, and came out a couple of years ago. And she also wrote Rain Dogs, a TV series that came out in the UK earlier this year, and it is so funny and so brilliant that it made me want to read her memoir,
Yeah.
and I completely recommend it because it it just sticks. That's the big thing, is that I her life has now stuck with me, and I feel I know her so well, and it makes me angry at what she's had to go through. And so it's an extremely effective memoir about Tory Britain.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, and really well written as well. Very funny, very dark, um, and yeah,
I like that. I mean, if you can get a book that's really detailed, it's really good, it's really hard hitting, that's important as far as I'm concerned.
yeah,
And it changes everything, I think, for everybody as well.
yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's incredible. So, that is the end of our show, folks, but we are going to have Alexandria back again
Oh, thank you.
because she's incredible. Also, I can't wait to sort of we're going to keep emailing each other, and then when my crime comes out, I'll be asking her for her opinion. I'll be
Oh,
chewing my nails down to my fingers. I'll be terrified. But guys, stick around. We've got an amazing bestseller next week. It seems like all bestsellers come on now, which is it's incredible because I'm not
well,
one.
there you go.
But yeah, just
What?
stick around, guys, and I'll speak to you again next week.
Thank you very much.